Welcome back. We just finished talking about the Peyer's patches. The other area that you're going to find lymphoid tissue is in the appendix. The appendix is at the very end of the cecum. So it's in this area right here is where you see the appendix. And it is simply a fused mass of lymphoid tissue. We don't understand its purpose. However, we do know that if it registers an infection, it becomes inflamed and swollen. And the biggest problem is it can actually rupture from that infection. And then because it's attached to the large intestine, it can spew the contents of the large intestine throughout your abdominal cavity. And that can cause all kinds of problems. So that's why somebody who has an inflamed appendix is going to have their appendix removed to protect them from that possibility. All right, so that is your lymphoid tissue. We're going to move to the next largest collection of lymphatic material, and that takes us to our lymph nodes. Lymph nodes are really small lymphoid organs. They range anywhere from 1 millimeter to 25 millimeters in size. And they are located throughout the lymphatic system, but you're going to see large collections of them in the cervical region, so in your neck, in the axillary region, your armpit, in the inguinal region or your groin, and here, those are where you're going to see the biggest collections of these lymph nodes. So when we look at their structure, if we look at it a little bit bigger, you can see their structure. They kind of do look like a kidney bean. Okay, so here's the structure of a lymph node. They have a capsule that's around them. This is the tough connective tissue, that dense connective tissue that kind of keeps everything all together. This right underneath the capsule in this subcapsular space here, this is where you'll see dendritic cells, and you can see it here showing you those dendritic cells as well, right in that subcapsular space. And that's what will start an immune response. So materials will come in by way of an afferent vessel. So here you can see all of these different lymphatic vessels that are going to bring fluid in. And think of this as being sort of a Brita filter. So fluid comes in and then it filters down through till it gets to the center. As it comes in, any harmful pathogen is going to stimulate these dendritic cells, and they're going to start getting activated and start an immune response. The next layer that we have after the subcapsular space is the cortex, and you can see the cortex is this area right in here, or it's this area right in here. When we look at the larger lymph node, this would be the cortex area in here. And we have a lot of B cells and some T cells in there, again, to help with the immune response. As we continue to move towards the center of the lymph node, here we have the medulla, and this region right in here. And in the medulla, that's where we have B cells and plasma cells that make antibodies. And so we have a continued immune response in here as well. So from all over your body, you're bringing in lymph. It's coming into these lymph nodes by way of the arriving afferent vessels, lymphatic vessels, and screened through the lymph node and hopefully comes out clean. Typically, about 99% of the pathogens are removed as they go through these lymph nodes. And this clean fluid, clean lymph, now exits the lymph node by way of the efferent vessel. Here at this indentation, this is called a hilum. Your lungs have one of these, your kidneys have one of these, lots of places that have these kind of indents in it, they have this structure called a hilum, and this is where the efferent vessel exits the lymph node. It's also where blood vessels enter and leave the lymph node as well. So functions, really your lymph node acts again as an early warning system. When you were little and you were sick, did your mom ever say, "Ooh, let me feel your glands"? Well, when she was saying, "Ooh, let me feel your glands," she actually was feeling your lymph nodes in your neck. And if they were swollen, there was an indication that was probably some type of infection going on in that general area. It might have been a respiratory infection, might have been an ear infection, something was going on. For instance, a number of years ago, I got bit by a spider on my forehead, right at my hairline, and on the right side, and I could tell exactly what was going on because as the lymph drained the toxin from the interstitial fluid at my hairline, it came down to the lymph nodes in my neck on the right side, and I had one lymph node in particular right at my jawline that was so swollen from these lymphocytes doing their job that it actually stuck out. Like you could see it in the mirror. You could see this lymph node sticking out. All right, so they're really work to filter out any kind of extracellular fluid. They're trying to clean away those pathogens. They're also going to be active in immune responses. So macrophages, big cells that do phagocytosis, are going to engulf the pathogen and present a piece of it to other cells to help your body recognize what the danger is, and so that whole system works together. Keep moving on in these lymphatic organs. The next lymphatic organ is your spleen. This is the largest collection of lymphatic tissue. Let me repeat that. Your spleen is your largest collection of lymphatic tissue. So it's like a ginormous lymph node for your blood. Okay. Where's it located? It's located in the upper left quadrant of your abdomen. It's kind of tucked in between your stomach, your diaphragm, and your left kidney. Okay. It has 4 functions. Your spleen has 4 functions. One, it recycles red blood cells, so old red blood cells are going to get cleaned here. Number 2, it is a site of red blood cell production as a fetus. Number 3, it stores platelets until they're needed. And number 4, and this is the biggest one that has to do with the lymphatic system, it initiates lymphocyte activation for pathogens that are circulating in the blood. So any type of blood attack from a pathogen is going to get recognized by the spleen, and it's going to start activating your adaptive immune response to go after those pathogens. The last of the lymph organs is the thymus. And the thymus is this structure that you see here, just superior to the heart. So when we look at its location, it's anterior or in front of the trachea and superior to the heart. Its function is, this is the location of T cell maturation. It uses a group of thymosins, THYMOSIN. Those are hormones that help the T cell to mature. The most interesting thing about the thymus gland is it reduces in size and function after puberty. So about the time that you hit puberty, your thymus gland was roughly 40 grams if we would have taken it out and found its mass at that point. By the time you are 50, your thymus gland will be about 12 grams. And so the thymus gland, because remember this is where T cells are, one of the things that we think is that our body doesn't need this as much as we get older because we have more memory cells that remember old pathogens and don't need as many new T cells to start the battle. However, it also makes us more susceptible as we age to new pathogens because we don't have as active a thymus gland and we don't have as many T cells being formed. So that ends the lymphatic system anatomy lecture. But we're going to just go from here right into the start of the innate immune system. And so I'm going to slide over to the other PowerPoint, and if you have your outline on the innate immune system, I'm going to start there. I might start there. This one. All right. So we're going to look at this innate immune system and start with the beginnings of this one as we look at it. So when we talk about the innate immune system, we want to look at what does immunity and the immune system, what do they mean as far as defenses go, as far as definitions go, sorry. And we also want to look at surface membrane barriers and describe the mechanisms of defense. So when we look at an innate defenses, these are the ones that you're born with, and it doesn't matter what type of pathogen your innate immune defense mechanisms come across, they're going to act the same way for every single one. And so when we look at these are great first line of defense that help us stop things from even entering our body, or when they first begin to become a part of, to enter our body and become a problem, they will begin that attack. As far as the definition of immunity, again, it's your body's ability to resist infection and disease. Okay, so the first of our innate immune system is the one that you see all the way up at the top. It is physical barriers. Okay, surface membrane or physical barriers are your skin and your mucosa. This is your first line of defense, and it prevents so many things from actually getting into our body. So when we take a look at our skin, remember, in order for a pathogen to get in to actually do harm to us, it has to cross the epidermis, it has to cross the hair. And remember, keratin in these layers here in your epidermis make it water resistant, so things can't dissolve in water and then ooze down through these layers and get to something that they can actually harm. That keratin prevents that from occurring. Rarely do we find that we end up with an infection through the skin as long as the integrity of the skin is whole. Now, if you end up damaging this skin, you have a cut or a scrape or some type of abrasion, that's where you'll see an infection occurring. The barrier that is much more easily broken down are the mucous membranes. Almost all of your systems are lined with mucous membranes. Your digestive system, respiratory system, reproductive system, and urinary systems. All of them are lined with a mucous membrane. Now, we do have some ways that we work on protecting those areas where we have mucous membranes. We have an acid environment. So if we look at the stomach, it's really acidic. So as we bring food into our bodies, it sort of goes through this acid wash in our stomach and helps destroy a lot of the pathogens that would enter in the food that we're eating. Along with that, in your sweat, you also have, your sweat is a little bit acidic, and that's going to help prevent additional pathogens from sticking to your skin because it's not a hospitable environment for them. In your saliva, you have lysozymes, and those lysozymes will actually kill bacteria. And in your mucus itself, so the mucous membrane produces mucus. That mucus is sticky, and a lot of times that will trap pathogens and prevent them from entering. Again, as I said, if we had to compare the two surface membrane barriers, skin and the mucosal membrane, the skin is a much better barrier. The mucosal membrane, much easier for a pathogen to cross and actually get into the interstitial spaces and start doing damage to our body.